Welcome to the Akashic Reading Podcast, presented by AkashicReading.com, the place where you can learn to access your soul's wisdom, or at least stop digging the hole any deeper. I'm your host, Terry Uktana, and today we'll be discussing practical physical ways you can support yourself to improve your focus and stamina when working Akashically. Ever notice there's a different feel to things when you do them in a group or with another person? With a partner, the thing you're doing not only goes faster and more easily, but seemingly more than the 2 times faster your brain thinks would be the case. With groups, ignore the fact they're often like wrangling cats. Getting them to make a decision can be death by committee, and large groups can become a mob. Groups or working as a team allows things to go even faster, more easily, and create the opportunity to do more and more complex things without too much additional effort. This is just as true with spiritual activities such as energy work, meditation, and ceremony. My students notice relatively quickly that working with me one-on-one gives them the ability to see more clearly, get more information, and have it be far more understandable or in context than when they're working on their own. This isn't because I have a special crystal wand which I wave during the session, but because I'm providing my energy and support like a turbo boost or additional engine. With more energy, momentum, and resources, they can do more. A similar thing happens in classes and workshops. There's not only my energy, but all the energy of the students which, when activated, creates a symphonic turbo boost of resources to propel their efforts. For some, this can actually be a bit much, which causes headaches, nausea, and dizziness. While there's too often a message in spiritual community to see this as a challenge, something to overcome, and a problem within the student, as well as other somewhat negative responses, in reality, this is a way to learn what forms of work you prefer or what mode of work is best for you. Just as there's no virtue in trying to be a triathlete when you're best suited to being a gymnast or a dancer, there's no one way of working spiritually. They all have pros and cons. However, it seems unfair that working on your own prevents you from accessing this extra energy, clarity, and ease of work. Whether you don't feel comfortable working with others or you don't have easy access to a healthy group or one which is a good fit for you, there should be a way to gain this energy boost. Luckily, there is. While people are most familiar with Akasha as universal energy, wisdom, and information, it's also equally abundant as earth energy or life force. Universal energy flows into us from our own crown chakra, or the top center portion of our skull, and moves downwards until we manifest it out into the world. Earth energy flows upwards from the manifested world into our feet, legs, and root chakra. Well, hands if we're doing a handstand or we've tripped or something, and moves through us to exit out the top of our head, bringing newly minted experiences and information back into the Akashics. Beyond what we need for our own becoming and to maintain health and abundance in this human form, earth energy can be utilized to provide each of us with extra energy we would otherwise have when working with others. There are any number of ways to do this, just as there are any number of ways to get from London to Singapore. Some are much faster, easier, and more comfortable than others. I mean, you can walk it, which requires some ferry travel, but it takes 123 days approximately, so But speed and ease isn't always what's best or makes sense under the circumstances. It all depends on what you need for the situation and what feels most supportive and nurturing. What all these ways of utilizing earth energy have in common is they create a physical sacred space which allows you to focus and program the energy to be and do what you need. So first, let's talk about temporary forms or things that are portable. There are times when what we need is something organic and nourishing, but which won't leave a mark or harm the environment, whether indoor or outdoor. Other times we need to do some fairly emotional or gnarly deep work which is going to cause us to release, transform, and blast through things which don't need to go out into the wider world or make a mess of our surroundings. In either case, these 3 things will do the trick. 1. Cornmeal, either white, yellow, or blue. 2. Rice. 3. Salt. Any kind, but more is better, so table salt works just fine and is cost-effective. Make a circle on the floor with your material of choice. The circle should be thick enough you can see it and it makes a complete line, not just a sparse dusting of color. I recommend pouring clockwise to create a positive upward spiral of energy once the circle is complete. Make the circle as big as you like or need. If you just need to sit in it, then big enough for your bum and knees. If you're going to stand, then it can be smaller, but if you're going to dance, move around at all, or need to have items in there with you, I'd go bigger than you think you need just in case. Once the work is done, you can clean up the circle. Sweeping or vacuuming are equally effective. I usually break the circle in one spot and then start clearing and cleaning counterclockwise. It quickly stops mattering once the circle is no longer a circle and the energy is dissipating, however. The act of cleaning up the material actually allows the energy to go back into its normal patterns again without lasting impact. If you've done work which caused releasing or healing, I'd dispose of the material in your outside garbage can. You may notice the color of the material has changed as it's absorbed what you released. No need to have that in the house any more than you would want rotten eggs or 10-day-old sardines sitting around. So then the next type of support is live fire. Fire is also nourishing for people. Akasha, prana, and chi is life force energy, so by its nature, it's fire-based. Hence, we talk about getting fired up when we have the capacity and the desire to manifest something into the world. Because fire is a living thing, it requires a bit more attention when being used, not because it would harm you energetically, but because it could burn the house down or start a wildfire. So always be aware when burning candles or anything else for that matter. Safety first. In working with live flame, there are two main ways to do so: central source or fence. Fire of any kind creates a natural circle of itself, but also the heat, light, and energy it manifests into the world. If you want to work with it in this form, then you can use a single candle, a brazier of some kind, or a fire pit. There are any number of urban fire pit options, so you don't have to dig a hole and find rocks if you prefer to keep the ground in one piece. The bigger the flame or the source of the fire, the bigger the energy circle created to work within. Hence, indigenous practices of dancing around bonfires or communal fire pits. Unlike earth materials, the fire energy can be overwhelming or push us beyond our limits, so it's a good idea to trial run what size of flame you'd like to use or what works best for you. Fence forms are more common in the 21st century, other than at Burning Man, and these are created with smaller flames delineating a space. Most often, this is 4 candles or 4 sticks or cones of incense set up at 4 points. Sometimes these are set in the cardinal directions, which invites the energies of the 4 directions to add into the upward flowing akasha. Other times they're offset, and the elements can be called in, or other energies as desired. Using the fence method allows you to make the area you're creating as big as you like without the danger of fire getting out of control, the need to burn a lot of material, or the heat causing people distress. More than 4 candles can be used to increase the strength of the fence and therefore the amount of akasha moving upwards. When you're done with the work, you'll need to manage the fire appropriately. If you're using candles, then snuff them out. Tapers don't need much more, but if you're using pillars, then gently fold the top edges in towards the wick while the wax is still warm. This way the wax will melt the next time you light them, and you'll keep them from tunneling down the center. If you have a bigger fire, turn off the gas if that's what you're using, or bank the burning wood to tame down the flames, then let things burn out of their own accord. Just make sure you care for the flame so it ends as safely and carefully as it started. If you're looking for something beefier but still temporary or which can be mobile, you can use a variety of items in the same fence method as the candles. River rocks can be set out in a full circle or just the 4 fence points. Setting them clockwise tells them what you want them to do and also sets the energy going in a positive upward spiral. Spacing follows the same rules as for the other temporary items. Bigger if you need space, smaller if you don't. Non-quartz crystals can be used like river rocks, and they add in the properties of that particular stone. It helps to know what they do or do with you so you can avoid unintended weirdness, skewed experiences, or uncomfortable physical sensations. I don't recommend using quartz crystals such as amethyst or clear, as their properties are focused on universal energy flows, mental processing, and information dumps, and so can create disharmony with this type of earth energy work. Also, don't use onyx, which is about past life connections, hematite, which is a dreamstone and ungrounding, obsidian, which is cutting through anything, as their properties tend to cause havoc with this type of work and the world already has enough chaos in it. You can also use representational items. These can be anything which will hold energy for you, from statues of deities you want to work with, buttons and energy symbols, drawings, paintings with energies which support you, and so much more. You need a minimum of 4 to create the fence, but you can have more. Just make sure they're evenly spaced, face inwards towards you, and are placed clockwise to spiral the energy upwards. Using items of this nature allows you to be very specific about the energies you're using and engage other beings as well if you choose. When you're done, pack them away counterclockwise, thanking them for their support and service. There's also a mobile way to work with circular energy, and this is through floor symbols. This is most commonly done through labyrinths painted on canvas, mandalas, and yantras printed on fabric, as well as symbols crafted into quilts. Each is created in such a way the pattern size is big enough for a person to sit in comfortably, but can be big enough to walk or can be wrapped around the person so they're spherically within the energy. None of these are as generic or programmable as candles or food materials, but they're open to being supportive of individual energy work. The Sri Yantra, for example, is healthy for everyone to use and is specifically geared to enhance and support abundance and health on all levels. The labyrinth is about going inward to unfold outwards, and various mandalas represent a version of the spherical world, which is something you can enhance to support your purposes. So then let's talk about permanent installations. We usually think of the big permanent forms of all this as institutional. They're places we go, such as labyrinths in a church, Zen gardens, temples, museums, and parks. However, there is little other than permission and space, the willingness to dust and or mow, which prevents people from having these things permanently in place for themselves. Symbols, mandalas, labyrinths, and yantras can be painted or inlaid into floors. They can also be built on much bigger scales in yards or courtyards. It can be powerful to have them in between buildings as the bridge between them and as an engine which supports them both. Representational items can be built into a room, or niches can be attached to walls, making a room or entire building a permanent earth energy hub. Or if you want to go really big, you can build replicas of sacred spaces outdoors, such as the full replica of Stonehenge we have here in the Northwest. I'll put a link to information about that in the podcast description. Whichever way works best for you in the moment or in your practice more broadly, you can have the energetic support you need to fully expend your personal energy in abundant and beautiful ways. Cheers to the journey. And that's all the time we have this week. If you're interested in knowing more, check out my website, akashicreading.com. Thank you to my patron of honor this week, Laura Rowland. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider supporting it by subscribing on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can join in weekly patron-only classes, see all my other offerings, and get regular updates about what I'm working on at patreon.com/TerryUktana. Thanks. Bye.